Podcast. How are you, Stephanie Puente?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here.
Oh, you're super welcome, and we've done many discussions on the Me&my Health Up podcast. So it's a delight to have you on the Joyful Mate podcast, and I'm really looking forward to getting your insights based on your experience and your wisdom around mental health and how the brain works, and yeah, so really keen to just have this conversation on happiness. And first of all, to bring the listeners up to speed, just share a little bit about your background.
I've always been interested in personal development and personal growth. It's always been a passion of mine. I became certified as a life mastery consultant a little over 10 years ago. And that I feel is aligned with my purpose, with my mission, really empowering people to create and live a life that they love. Prior to that work, I was involved with event planning and marketing, really helping people create events and experiences, design events and experiences. And now just taking it even more deeply into helping them to create experiences in their life that they love.
Yeah, so
So, yes, I've been doing this. Yeah.
and where are you joining us from?
Well, I am tuning in from Crested Butte, Colorado. I'm originally from Texas, grew up in San Antonio, lived in Austin for over 20 years, and my family and I achieved the dream moving to Colorado, a place that we love, building our dream home and living in a place that we love. So we've been here in Crested Butte, Colorado for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah, so you're really connecting closely with nature in the process.
Yes, definitely. Seeing the mountains, being present to all of the seasons, really appreciating all the different weather that we experience here, having easy access to hiking and biking and skiing has been really, really wonderful. And just the slower pace of life has also helped create a greater sense of peace and ease in our life.
Awesome. So it's certainly bringing
Yeah.
you more joy and fulfillment.
Yes, yes, just looking outside and seeing nature, seeing the, sunrises and sunsets and the changing of the leaves and animals, in the snow and in the summertime and all the flowers. Just looking at all of that brings a great sense of joy. Definitely elevates you just by stepping outside.
So it's very much you being present with what is and connecting with that. So it's staying in the moment and having that level of awareness that you're in the moment and you're experiencing that moment and really allowing yourself to be immersed in that moment.
Yes, yes. And in my own personal journey, that one of the things that's been so important is just the um, awareness of not wanting to miss out on life because I'm caught up in, limiting beliefs, limiting stories, stress, fear, worry. And so the ability to notice that I'm caught up in that and the ability more and more to be able to pause on those thoughts, take a few deep breaths to change my breathing, and then bring myself to the present moment and really be aware of what's going on, deepen my ability to listen, and the discovery that even if it's a moment or a circumstance that might not be to my preference, that I can still find the good in the present moment, find the joy, and really work with my ability to recognize the good and the joy in the present moment and to recognize that this is a gift that we have to be alive and to not miss it uh, because I'm caught up in old patterns of thinking or worry about the future. So that practice brings me a lot of joy to treat each moment with reverence.
So
So
how do you catch yourself when you're either drifting off in the past or fast forwarding into the future and worrying about something? Have you got something that you like a process that you catch yourself and you think, okay, I'm losing my presence or losing my focus? How do you bring yourself back to the present?
Yes. Well, in the work that I do with people is I support them in having a clear vision for who they want to be and the life that they desire to create. And so it's naturally going to bring up ways of thinking or actions or old habits that aren't a match to that version of me and my vision, who is present, who's loving, who's kind, who's open, etc. So one of the tools that we teach people is this tool of noticing what you're noticing. Because unless I notice what I'm paying attention to, it's like the thoughts are just running me. But if I set the intention that I'm going to start paying attention to what I'm paying attention to, I can see the difference between who I am endeavoring to be, living from a vision, versus how I find myself reacting out of an old story or something going on outside of me. So just the process of becoming aware and getting better and better at it, it's like a muscle. And I recognize, oh my gosh, I'm not present right now. I'm in a story, I'm in an argument in my mind, or I'm worrying about something. So as soon as I notice it, I pause. And sometimes I have to say pause and then change my breathing. And it is so important, our breath, because when we're in that reactive mode to what's going on outside of us, or just our patterns are thinking us, when we change our breathing, breathing in slowly through the nose and exhaling out like we're blowing out through a straw, that helps to shift us out of that fight, flight, survival into rest, digest, and create. And I know you know this, but it sends a signal of safety to ourselves, and we can think independently from what we're reacting to, and we can then choose. And sometimes I'll say, what's an empowering thought I could think in this moment, or what would I love in this moment, or what's a quality that I want to embody in this moment, or what is joyful about this moment. And then I cause myself to look for that, to find it. And that takes practice. And just like, working out new muscles, it can feel kind of hard at first, but with practice, it gets easier and easier. And the ability, I think there's also joy in the recognition that we can separate from those thoughts and patterns and realize I am not that. That's just a thought pattern. And I am more than that. I am spirit. I am life. Whatever word might resonate with people. But for me, I just say, I am more than this. Like, life is happening through me right now. And there's joy just in that recognition that I am not that limiting story that I've been telling myself. So the ability to separate from it by noticing, changing my breathing, and then redirecting myself with an empowered question or a quality that I want to bring to the moment, or what is joyful in this moment, and then be present to it.
Fantastic insight. So really like what you shared there. Have you got a recent example of something that's happened to you or to a client that you could just walk us through how it the situation, how it unfolded, and being able to apply what you just shared with us?
Well, an immediate example is oftentimes when I am getting ready to do something, there's growth involved. We're getting ready to do some travel, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I recognize that I have an old pattern that's like a critical voice in my mind that keeps me kind of in a familiar way of being, which in the past, a pattern of mine is just to be in a place of worry. And that somehow that tells me that like I'm controlling things if I'm in a state of worry. And just yesterday, as I was doing some housework, I noticed some pain in my back, and I started focusing on the pain in my back and getting upset. And I said to myself in this moment, here's a sneaky way that some stuff is coming up to distract me from something wonderful that's going to be taking place, and this is just how a part of me comes up to kind of keep me in a familiar place of safety, control, if you will. So in that moment, although I had some back pain because I was vacuuming, I just started affirming, and really celebrating the great health that I have, and just seeing myself feeling grateful and joyful that I'm able to do these things to get the house ready as we're preparing to go away. So that's just one small example of how I work with my thinking. When I notice myself in a constrictive thought pattern, and I shift into a more expanded way of being and thinking, so that I stay open to the good that is happening. So that's one example, just like on the fly, of how I work with myself and my thinking. And one of my clients, one of the things that he has been working on, he's got a lot of belongings in his house that he has wanted to let go of. But there's a lot of memories associated with those things. And there's just a sense of overwhelm about where to start. And so to support him in shifting from overwhelm, I encouraged him to just invest 5 minutes and just to start, and that it wasn't really important about the time, but the idea of moving the energy, of beginning to clear, what he called the clutter, if you will, and to set the timer for 5 minutes, and to find the joy and just moving the energy, and that for that 5 minutes of clearing the clutter, that 5 minutes is in alignment with his vision of having a beautiful space where he's curated the items that matter most to him. And when he looks at those things, he feels a sense of joy. So even though that hasn't happened yet, when he looks outside of himself, he sees all the clutter. But as he invests that 5 minutes of just moving the energy, that contains that joy that he would feel when the space has been transformed. And even though that was challenging for him at first, he said that he didn't invest 5 minutes, he invested 8 minutes. And it was really hard. It's like exercising new muscles when the mind wants to go to feeling overwhelmed. But then after that, he was inspired to invest 90 minutes, and he had fun as he was continuing on. So these are this is a way to help begin to shift the perspective, to not let to have a sense of the overwhelm, but not let it have us, and that we can shift our perspective through that process and transform that energy from constriction to joy. And it takes practice, and just feeling that resistance and doing it anyway, and discovering that you are more than that overwhelm. To me, there's a sense of joy in that as well.
Yeah, because that
So
sense of resistance comes about as a result of stepping into the unknown, right? It's the element of uncertainty, and we think, oh, we haven't been there, and it's all these sort of possibilities that can happen, and that can become overwhelming, particularly if we perceive the step as being huge. Whereas I think what I really liked in the example you shared about your client was just take 5 minutes, just do 5 minutes, just step into that space of feeling a bit uncomfortable, but it's not too uncomfortable because you're only allocating 5 minutes of your time. It's not like, oh, I've got to find a day or a week to just do this massive project. It's find 5 minutes of your time, step into that uncomfortableness. And as he stepped in, it started to become more comfortable, and then he found 90 minutes. Like it just, it expanded because he immersed himself into that uncertainty, and then that uncertainty started to become more certain, and he started to realize that yes, his vision's starting to come true every little step, or every little bit of energy he puts into creating an ordered space. So I really love that example that you shared, because I think often we do have these grand visions, and we just think they're too out of out of sight or too, too big, and it's sort of, I got to have these. I got to wait till the time's perfect, or situations. This aligns up with this, and we don't do anything about it. Whereas I really loved how you broke it down into just invest 5 minutes of your energy into doing the task and allowing that 5 minutes to expand in time. So that was a really profound example, and I think what you shared before that around having that vision to start with is really important, because you need to know where you're going. You need to define that pathway, and then with that pathway, like we're going to walk down that path, and sometimes we wander off, we get a bit distracted, but then you've got a technique that gets you back onto that path, that pause, and then I guess step out and observe what's happening. Oh, you've been taken off your vision, or you've been taken off your mission. You've gone into autopilot, old patterns. It's time to, this is not me, but I can get back on course through awareness and conscious action. So I've really loved the insights that you've shared thus far on how to discover and bring about more joy into your clients, and also you're applying this as well. What else have you found that really helps help people, help your clients, help yourself gain more fulfillment besides what you've shared?
Well, I think finding those activities that you love, the vision that I support people in is living a life that you love. And what does that look like? What are the activities that you are doing? And in particular, in your health and your well-being, that help you to stay grounded, that help you to stay connected to your truth and what is true. And so, having quiet time to meditate, having time to connect to your vision, studying and expanding your awareness, finding content that supports you in expanding your thinking, and then taking the step that you can take that is in alignment with your vision. Because when we're doing things that are aligned with what we would love, it brings fulfillment in each of those different actions that we're taking. So I support people and myself, every day, and doing things that ground me, that center me, that help me to think, in a peaceful way. Exercising, dancing, those types of things bring about connection to the moment and connection to joy, connecting with those that we love, and being present to those moments. Having pets, that's brought a lot of joy in my own life, having a dog. And so those are some of the things that I do in my own life, and I also support others in terms of cultivating an awareness of what brings you joy, and then how can you stay connected to it, because it is so easy to get distracted, to react to things that are going on outside of ourselves, and to worry, and to get into the how of how am I going to bring all this about. And when we're in fear or doubt or worry, we feel constricted, and it's easy to not be able to access the next joyful move that we can make, because we're kind of buried in that fear, doubt, or worry.
It's so very true. Like, I think what can happen is that we plan too much, or we commit to too much, and we're busy doing some things are in alignment, some things might not fall exactly into alignment with our vision, but the problem is that we don't have time allocated to pause and reflect. And that's what I like about what you do, is not only you set your day up with things that bring you fulfillment and keep you on mission and on course with your vision, is that you have spots there to pause and contemplate and to reflect. And it's that pause that really enables you to reflect on okay, have I been working on my mission? Have I been on course with my vision? Am I doing the things that bring me fulfillment? Because if you don't have that gap to reflect, we just get into that autopilot, as you said, because we get overwhelmed with everything that's going on, and that constricts our ability to experience joy, because it really confines our thinking. We just get into the doing and the automation, and that worrying patterns will come in, and all that will, I guess, transpire, and it doesn't allow us to really step out and reflect on what we've been doing and whether it's on path, and how do we get back on path if we're off path, and all those sort of things. So I really like how you not only put the big rocks in place in terms of these are the things I'm committed to and will do, and that's really aligned to my vision, is that you allow space to reflect on your activities and whether they've been the most resourceful way to get to path B or point B, or whether you could finesse it and become up with more creative ways to fast track your towards your vision. But we can only do that through reflection and pausing.
Yes. And as you're sharing, the other thing I think that's been so helpful to me, and I support others in doing, is to be in a practice of regularly celebrating your progress. And that brings me a lot of joy when just during the day, when I find myself maybe where the harsh critical thinking comes in, and I start worrying about what's left to be done, or what if this or what if that, to pause and start focusing on what can I celebrate, or what is joyful that's going on right now, and to cause myself to acknowledge all of those things. And that really shifts my inner state. I can also add to that gratitude. I'm so grateful for this and for this and for this. And that helps to shift my inner state from feeling constricted to more expanded. And then I can go back into the rest of the day from a place of celebration on the good that is here right now, and how I'm finding joy in it, how it's helping me to grow. Again, even if it's not to my preference, what's happening, I still have the ability to see it in a way that's most empowering. And there's a couple of quotes that I found just before I had this opportunity to connect with you that I thought are appropriate. And these come from a couple of different newsletters that I subscribe to. And one of them said, you can change how you feel in the twinkling of an eye if you just change what you view as important. And so, as we're talking about noticing what we're noticing, and I'm giving my attention to things that don't bring me joy, I can pause on that and say, well, what is important? And I can shift my perspective. And it's not that I'm denying the things that are going on, but I'm denying the power of those things to get inside me and cause me to feel not joyful. So that was one quote. And the other one was, joy has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and everything to do with the focus of our lives. And we can set an intention that we are going to be more joyful. I'm going to look for and find things to be joyful about, and that can be a way to live my life. And certainly things are going to come up that aren't a match to that way of being, but that's the opportunity. It's good news, because here's my opportunity to transform that old way of being to this new way of being, which is I choose to, live a life of joy, and I'm going to find those things.
It very much brings me to a quote I heard from Anthony Robbins, and it is, what we focus on expands. And so what you're sharing there is, if we focus on the worry, that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If we focus on finding joy in every situation, that expands too. And the worry constricts, the worry goes away and the joy expands. And I really like, the quotes you shared, and I guess how we can shift our perspectives from feeling disempowered to empowerment based on the way we see things and what we focus on. So that's really amazing insights. Have you noticed any thieves, like things that really take people off course, like the thieves of joy, or the things that sabotage joy? What are some of those things?
I think the biggest one for me personally, and things that I see other people doing, I think is comparison. As we heard, compare is to despair. And it just completely constricts you in the moment and causes you to lose sight of the good that's in your life right now when we compare ourselves to others. So I think the ability to notice what we're noticing, and it's okay. And I wanted to add on a side note, as we're talking, um, you know, I like this analogy that the rocket ship on its way to the moon doesn't go in a straight direction. It's constantly kind of getting off course, but it's realigning. So to accept the fact that we're not perfect in our desire and decision to live in joy, and if we get off track, it's okay. What matters is that we get back on track as soon as we notice it, so we can get off track with comparison is one thief of joy. I think feeling not enough, or feeling, a recognition of feeling unworthy, or I'm not enough. And in those moments to acknowledge, I am worthy, you are worthy, because we're breathing. Life has us here today. So that makes us worthy of allowing as much life to flow through us. So to shift that unworthiness or feeling not enough to, celebrating, well, here's how I am growing, and to find the things to celebrate about where we are right now, and that we're continuing to learn and grow, and that's part of the journey. And so I think that harsh, critical, judgmental self, and shifting to self-love, and just finding and cultivating an awareness of all the things that we love about ourselves, so that we can, feel joy even in those moments when, we didn't act in the way we wanted to act, or respond, or do what we had intended to do. That as we love ourselves and give ourselves, compassion, that can help us to be aware of the good that is here. So I think comparison, feeling not enough, harsh, critical, judgmental, to push ourselves into making change, versus like allow it and make it welcome through self-love and celebration.
Yeah, I love that celebration point. It's sort of like we can often get so fixated on getting to the vision that we just constantly observing the gap between where we currently are and where the vision is, and we're thinking, oh, I'm still years or whatever away from realizing that, or I'm never going to realize that, and giving up hope. Whereas what you're sharing is, celebrate those small incremental progress milestones, and it's a matter of reflecting and just looking how far you've come from, where you were a year ago to where you are today. And I really like that. I guess that insight is that we can get too fixated on where we want to be, and we're not there, and that becomes too overwhelming and concerning, or we might give up a bit of hope. But if you just focus on those next steps and celebrating that incremental progress, you can, as you said, stay in the moment and experience more fulfillment on the journey.
Yes, yes. And one last idea around that too is, in my training and work that we do with people, we talk about this idea of saying, today is what it looks like as it's all coming together. That we're not trying to get to anything, we're coming from it, coming from joy. And this is what it looks like today, as I am becoming a more joyful person. And I'm doing it here, and I'm doing it here, and I'm doing it here. So there's this awareness and energy of I'm doing the best I can today to come from living a life of joy, who I want to be, my vision, etc.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really profound, because it just keeps you applying the action and staying focused and on track, and that focus expands, and we just feel more fulfilled in the moment, as opposed to worrying about whether we're going to ever get to our vision, or how far we've got to go, or whatever like that. So that's really nice insight. Is focus on the day and what's in front of you, and really just focus on those actions, and enjoying the process of of going on the journey.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just is there anything that you think about that is unknown that you'd like to know around joy, happiness, and fulfillment?
Is there anything? Well, I think one of the things that I think just greater support around this idea that it's okay to, this is what's coming to me. It's okay to have sadness. It's okay to have um, a variety of different emotions that you can, and an analogy that I really like that has helped me, that I learned from one of my mentors, is this idea that, the ocean has all kinds of things floating in it, but those things are not the ocean, you know, and that you can have a variety of different emotions and things going on that we experience as humans, and that there can still be joy in that, and not to be afraid of those other, things that we go through as humans, around the natural transitions of our kids getting older, or us, reaching a certain age, where we're now in our 50s, and there's these passages of time, and how to allow all those kinds of feelings, and still recognize that there can be a sense of fulfillment and joy and happiness, and that is something, that I would love to work on more and know more about, to feel empowered to be able to hold all those emotions, and know, that that like there's clouds covering a mountain, and that the mountain is still there, and you don't have to give a lot of attention to the clouds. You can just let them be there. But that source of joy and happiness and fulfillment is within you still, even though you might be experiencing other human emotions.
I love that profound insight, and it sort of brings up for me that quantum physics around entanglement, and that the like I guess happiness and sadness are entangled. They're not separate, and so in any moment you can experience sadness, but also happiness, and same vice versa. You can be happy and sad, and you often see that, like, when people achieve incredible things, that there's tears of joy, right? There's like
Mm-hmm.
in a sense that there's that emotion of euphoria, and brings about all these feelings and intense emotions, and everything's there, as you said. It's all interlinked and entangled, and they're not separate at any one time. And so I think it brings back to your earlier point that even in times of sadness, we can find joy. Even in,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, times of extreme elation and happiness can bring some form of sadness. So they're always entangled and together. They're not separate. And I think it just really concludes this episode and discussion really well, in terms of that profound insight that you shared just then. How can the listeners best connect with you?
Thank you. The best way to connect would be through my website, Stephanie Train Puente at Gmail. I'm sorry, that's my email address at gmail. I'm sorry, wait, my website is stephanietrainpuente.com. And my email address is Stephanie at corefactor.com. So those are the best ways, to connect with people and to find out about offerings that I have and to learn more. Those are great ways to connect.
Fantastic. And to the listeners, I'll include those links in the show notes, so you can go directly to the show notes, click on the link and connect with Stephanie. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on happiness. I really appreciate you coming on the Joyful Mate podcast. Is there any concluding words you'd like to part with the listener?
Well, I want to again celebrate you for having this insight, this inspired idea to help people in their wellness and to bring greater joy to the world by means of this podcast. So I'm really honored. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think, just having clarity, letting yourself know what it is that lights you up, that brings you joy, and to begin taking a step today to be that version of you, embody it, take an action, and that as you take the step that you can take, that's how the next steps get revealed in terms of creating, a life of joy, taking the step that you can take today, and know that that's taking you somewhere, and to treat that action with importance, that it is indeed taking you somewhere that's in alignment with what you would love.
Absolutely. I love that, those concluding words. And just want to thank you again so much for coming on, Stephanie. And to the listeners, please share this with others that you believe that could benefit from Stephanie's really insightful discussion around happiness, joy and fulfillment, vision. We covered so much ground. So please share it with others that you feel that could really benefit from those insights and those actionable steps that Stephanie shared with us. So thank you so much, listeners, and thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.